Greetings and welcome to this exclusive discussion on the unsung workers, how to enhance benefits and social security for them. The COVID pandemic has given a much needed push to the frontline workforce economy, with hybrid and remote working cultures becoming mainstream. Companies also need to work on improving their policies to provide a better and more secure working environment for their frontline workers. Facilities such as sick leaves, emergency accident insurance, and health insurance are some of the basic things that employers need to look after. With a large number of women workers entering the frontline ecosystem, the organizations have to think about the security and safety in the system, which will lead to a healthy work environment. Aligned to this thought, ETHR World and Better Place are delighted to welcome you all today as we try to chart the road ahead for the unsung workers and discuss how to achieve this goal in the coming years. I am Apeksha Kaushik, Senior Content Producer at ETHR World, and I'm pleased to welcome Milind Apte, SVP Human Resources, Ceat Tyres Limited, and Tarun Sinha, CEO, Better Place Enterprise Business, to this discussion. Welcome, Milind and Tarun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's begin with the discussion then, and I'll put forth my first question to you, Tarun. So it would be great if you can start this by sharing some of the challenges that organizations face in frontline workers management and how it has evolved over the years.
Absolutely. So, if you look at frontline, it encompasses across industries, right? You would have a person who's working in sales, somebody in delivery and logistics, shop floor in a factory, or a warehouse where a person is actually enabling the goods that reach our home, right? And if you ask me, frankly, there are two major challenges that you feel and you see with this ecosystem. One is the shortage of workforce itself, right? How do you get the right skilled labor? How do you get the right skilled person at the right time? And the second is attrition. If you look at white collar and if you compare it to frontline, attrition ranges all the way between 10% a month to actually going up to 13 to 15%, right? Also, as we evolve and over time, the biggest challenge that organizations face is that how do you onboard and engage with this workforce as they actually come and go through the journey of your organization, right? There is also a changing trend where demand is getting variabilized. People want to work as per their own convenience. So it's like getting a gig on a weekend or somebody who wants to work on an evening shift. Flexibility is coming into this ecosystem, and how are the organizations facilitating that they can variabilize this and manage the fixed costs across payroll? That's going to be another transition that we see in this ecosystem. While we have seen over the last couple of years, the average salaries of this ecosystem have increased by 3%, but more and more organizations are starting to look at these people as not short-term staff, but actually investing in them and how they can actually move up the value chain, whether it's skilling them to be more capable on the job, or whether it's actually training them for actually moving up the value chain and actually getting to become managers. So we've actually seen a 232% increase on organizations that are investing back into the hours that are spent on skilling and cross-skilling this workers. So I think there's a paradigm shift happening. One is clients and organizations that are adopting this process and actually seeing how we can give benefits back. And at the same time, the workforce is also actually adopting this change in a large and strong way. So I would say that is how I would summarize it.
Sure. Thank you, Arun. So that sets quite a well foundation for the conversation ahead. So Milind, I would like to bring you into the picture here and ask you about the kind of attrition which is happening across the frontline workforce scene. So what do you think are the reasons for it, and how can tech solutions help in solving this?
So I think Tarun rightly brought in the attrition trends and very valid inputs. I think flexibility, convenience seems to be name of the game right now. And the entire generation which we are getting on board, whether it is blue-collared workmen or whether it is people in sales, I would say the way they used to look at their jobs has undergone dramatic change. So for example, flexibility, convenience, culture, ethics, and opportunities to also pursue something beyond work, they are all becoming big priority. So money is one part for sure, but I think there are many other peripheral but very important asks which employees also have. Attrition, as Tarun rightly mentioned, is hovering between a 10% to a 15%. But I think the core question, and we were reviewing very recently the entire attrition trend, after the great attrition syndrome coming from US hitting India very hard, IT sector especially going berserk with attrition. My sense is, given the pressure on profitability, pressure on employee cost and average costs have gone up. My sense is attrition up to a point won't be a bad phenomenon. The level will change. So, for example, in Ceat, if I was looking at 8% stable attrition in the past, maybe it has moved up to 12% today. So, I would say that attrition, whichever percent which you define basis which industry you are, up to a point is okay, because you have to also balance between the cost, profitability, and the overall employee engagement and well-being. It is clearly driven by the economies of demand and supply right now. So if you see, IT is going crazy, and we have an IT organization within the RPG fold. And you ask somebody how you got a job, and he said, I had written X software I know in my CV, and I was picked up only because of that. Whether I know the software, I don't. It's written that I know the software is good enough for you to get a job in IT today, right? So it's a demand and supply situation in Ceat kind of organization, and you'll be surprised that while we are in tire, but manufacturing is doing exceedingly well in the country. The places where we exist, let's say industrial hubs and areas, so many new plants coming up, and people getting a 5,000 rupees more or a 10,000 rupees more, people are leaving. It isn't about loyalty and good culture in our company. So it seems to be driven by demand supply, by that incremental monetary gain which people will have. So what we did, and I can bring in little practicality here, is we kind of said that, okay, X amount of attrition is okay with us. So we need not really worry if, let's say, a blue collar workman, and in our case, it's all diploma engineers, blue collar workmen also, right? And we would want them to grow and go and do well. Why should they waste their entire time and energy with us? So up to a 15%, we are quite fine. But beyond that, I think what we have really done is we have used technology big way. Overall communication, I would say, connect through technology, because reaching out to 10,000 people otherwise is practically impossible. So we have really leveraged on communication, technology. We have provided upskilling platforms by use of technology, I think, which are really helping them. And we have tried to use technology to improve overall productivity. So if I particularly give example of our frontline, if he used to visit a dealer or a distributor in the past, he used to pick up orders. No more he picks up order. It's by default auto now. It is more to build relationship. So what we have done is we have improved the quality of work, and we have eliminated supervisors on the shop floor now, and we have converted the entire workforce into self-managed teams with the help of technology. Right. So technology, I would say, is definitely helping. Long way to go, but it is helping to give people a sense of doing good quality work, which is contributing or adding to the overall purpose and vision of the business. Right. And communication, connect, and overall scope for skilling using technology is really helping us right now.
Thank you for that, Milind. So we'd like to expand that conversation from there with you only here, and we'd like to get into some certain specific where you can bring in your organization best practices on board and let us know if you have what kind of steps have you taken to ensure a better workplace policy for frontline workers. You did talked about a certain things, but if we can just explain it in a little length with us here.
No, absolutely. I'm so glad to have this, because there is a lot I can speak about. So first, one unique thing which we introduced is called Chief Fitness Officer. And I'm not very sure how many organizations will have a Chief Fitness Officer reporting to HR head. And I having in my goal sheet a target of transforming personal health of X number of employees. So we have brought disproportionate focus on frontline workers, especially field officers, who at the young age, because of high pressure, have blood pressure, diabetes, etc., right? So one, the entire focus on physical, mental well-being. We have 6 psychologists and psychiatrists engaged with us who work very closely. So we just finished, as part of Sales Assist program, a test to identify stress levels in frontline workmen. And we have identified people with red and amber zones, and our psychiatrists and psychologists are helping them to overcome the entire stress. And our Chief Fitness Officer, through diet and physical fitness regime, we have a full-time physical fitness trainer also. We are really going out of the way to really improve people's health, both mental and physical. I think And we are doing it for all the employees across. So I think that's one thing I would bring on board. Second big thing we are going with is coaching and mentoring. So particularly for our frontline workmen, I think we have institutionalized something called coaching. And for our fellow colleagues on shop floor, we have launched an initiative called Pulse. And what Pulse means is every manager is given 6 to 8 blue collar associates. And this person is supposed to establish personal relationship beyond work. Obviously, there is a lot of method to this madness. So about 5,000 blue collared employees today are attached to some or the other manager. And I've been able to build that deep connect to absolutely come forward and share and speak about anything which they feel. Third big thing is work-life balance and disproportionate focus on work-life balance. And I want to bring in just one example. Field force markets are working all 6 days. So I can't give them 5-day week work. But what we have really done is we have called for a cutoff at 7 o'clock in the evening, and no sales transaction now happens after 7. There are many informal WhatsApp groups which add to a lot of pressure. We have suspended all the groups after 7 o'clock. Right. So I think we have tried to bring in policies, and I can give a few more examples, but within whatever limitations we have, can we bring in much better policies to improve the work-life balance? And the best one is fully empowered workforce. So today, if there is a tire complaint, sales officer is at the hub, he looks at the tire, we have provided some support, the officer there and there can give a sanction of replacing the tire. We have cut through entire hierarchy, completely empowered on expenses, travel, and making choices on dealing with customers, for example. So these are a few I thought I'll quickly bring on board.
Sure, Milind, and those were some great initiatives. Thank you for, in fact, sharing with all of us here at this forum. Tarun, I would like to come to you here, and Milind did talk about the role of technology, but I would like to hear from you from a overall perspective. You being, working in with different industries and area of organizations, how do you see the role of technology unfold as we see it in the context of uplifting the frontline workers?
And I think Milind gave some very prudent examples. I mean, when you think about well-being of the workforce, right? When you think about mentoring, when you think of upskilling, when you think of work-life balance, right? I think a large organization that adopting it is very refreshing. And us as a technology service provider, how does technology enable such organization to disseminate this? How does it make it more easier to reach 10,000 workforce that is sporadically based across multiple shop floors across the country? If you actually realize how we interact with the applications, the white collar workforce is very different than somebody on the shop floor. The UI UX has to be completely custom to something that he can adopt. The minute you have too much of verbose and language, you will lose him. You should have tiles, you should have color codes. You should be acknowledging the fact that what is his education level and how can he converse with it, right? We know that they have typically low bandwidth handsets, right? The application should work on a lower bandwidth handset, right? GB should be lower. So we have to adopt to the actual use case so that we can facilitate large organizations like Ceat who are getting into such best practices to bring down the cost. At the same time, how do they reach out to a mass workforce spread across the country, right? For example, shop floor, and Milind would know this, compliance is a key. Every state has a different compliance, right? You have to maintain rosters, you have to measure performance. How do we manage that guy on the work field? How do we create tools end-to-end to facilitate large organization that this process from onboarding to the time the person exits the organization is tech-enabled and works smoothly? So I think that's another place where technology partners with companies like Ceat very, very clearly articulated, right? This is a two-pronged thing, right? One is, while Milind has great practices, and I'm taking his example because he put forth some great examples, he's optimizing cost, at the same time creating a larger reach and improving the well-being and benefits of his organization at the same time. If you look at the worker, he's getting these benefits. He is able to converse with technology. We are making him adopt that, and at the same time we are accelerating the fact that you don't have to have a physical presence. For example, he mentioned that you don't need managers anymore. If you have a tool that can disseminate skilling or process training across the organization in one day to 5,000 people, then why do you need trainers on location? So I think it's a win-win for both sides, how very clearly these policies, these best practices of organizations are marrying technology, and then how service providers are at triangulating it so that between the workforce and the organization and technology, we speak to each other very well. So I think it's a great collaboration that is happening, and Ceat is, I can see one example of such thing.
In fact, Apeksha, if I can add to what Tarun is saying, I think I would want to just bring one example here. So far, so good, whatever we have discussed. I think to our mind, one common trend here is now you can't expect the employee to be with you for 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. Gone are the days, right? So none of our practices, none of our offerings should be in a direction which will think of an employee staying with you for 25 years. The way I look at it is millennials and Gen Z are your future. Their retention period is not more than 5 years average, in my opinion. So using technology, UI, UX, as Tarun rightly spoke about, and using best practices to engage them and to be fair on the other side. How do we make sure that the journey of 5 years is beneficial to both sides? The employees gain in this process, and they gain competencies and skills which make them far more employable, and they gain in their career, and we find very engaging and productive employees on the shop floor, right? I think that's how things are going to really span out over a period of time.
I would completely echo that. I mean, there's a span, and I think the average tenure in an organization is reducing, right? We are absolutely willing to take them to a skill level. They might move into gray collar and beyond. And then there is another backfill that happens. So we have to accept this reality that the span is reduced. I completely echo that, Milind.
So we did talk about the changes that is happening, and it is, a lot to take in for organizations as well, and for obviously the employees as well who are working at any level, in fact, in the organization. So with all these disruptions, the transformations, what the core remains is that the adaptation to all these changes, it's not just going to be up top bottom, but it is going to be from bottom to up as well. So Milind, what changes you talked about a certain of them, but apart from that, what are the other key changes that your industry is experiencing in frontline worker management, and especially with respect to the tech interventions? We talked about all these things, and the kind of ask which is coming on board with the workforce which is there at the moment.
So I think we are thankfully going through a lot of positive and big transformation on technology. So Industry 4.0, for example, is a big example. We are part of the Lighthouse project with World Economic Forum right now, and we are going with the final exam for certification very shortly. And this is all about technology, right? It is all about the automation and making the shop floor employee extremely empowered in delivering the final product. If I just speak of one example here, the training part. So today, when I have my blue-collar associate, it takes me 6 months for him to get trained on a tire machine. Today, with the help of VR, virtual reality, we have set up a lab in our plant, and employees are trained using virtual reality. So I don't need a dedicated machine anymore for training people. We have been able to bring the training period down from 6 months to 30 days. With the use of technology, right? So that's one example I gave, and it's running exceedingly successfully in our plant. We are obviously replicating and adding much more power to it, to this one technology. If I look at the entire sales side, we have gone very aggressive with customer offerings which ease out our frontline. So dealer portal is one example, exhaustive use of Salesforce tools. So today what happens is dealer has an app and anything and everything happens on the app. Field force sales employee is with the dealer, not for selling tires anymore. He is there to build relationship and actually share features and benefits of the product with end customer. So everything is available using technology with immersive experiences. So we have models today using technology which actually help you understand features of a tire, and when it's on a road, what exactly happens, right? I think that's the kind of automation. If you look at customer complaints, today, if a customer walks into a dealer and says there is a cut on the tire on the side wall, The field officer just goes and clicks the photo, and with the use of technology, there are many simulations we have done, and he exactly understands whether this fault is acceptable as per our defined perimeter or no. And there the customer gets the resolution. So what this has really done, Apeksha, is the quality of work of my frontline has undergone dramatic change. And forget the permanent employees, even the contractual employees who were supposed to do or meant to do a lot of hard work only, their format of work has completely changed with tabs and laptops and handsets which are tech enabled, and with a lot of empowerment, authority, and freedom to make decisions on the go. Coming to larger population, I think bots are playing a big role here. So administratively, if you were getting consumed to ask a question, you are trying to find right people, get right answers, understand policies, procedures, etc. Today, we have a bot called Sherlock, which we have institutionalized for last over 4 years. And it's Sherlock, which connects with everyone very quickly, and all queries are resolved practically in no time. And just to add, we are working on bringing chief listening officer, which is also by using technology. Because the fact is, if I have 10,000 employees, it's impossible for me to reach to every employee. I may be able to reach out to a few. So do I really hear the voices of every employee? The answer is no. You go with sample. So with a chief listening officer, and which is pure technology, there is no human being here, we'll be able to listen to 10,000 employees at regular touch points, right? And we will exactly know pulse of the organization. So I think these are some of the big initiatives which are on board. And thankfully, even if you look at blue-collar workmen, he's equally excited to know about technology. And rather, I would say they're far more curious than what we are to be part of this technology. So data scientist, for example, was unheard in our kind of context. But because we are going with Industry 4.0 now, McKinsey has trained 70 of my blue-collar workmen, and they have become data scientists, right? So we have gone with a model where we hired 10 scientists from McKinsey. In our agreement, we had an agreement of training 70 or 80 people in-house, and they will keep on replicating more and more people. And that's how people will get accustomed to this entire business of data scientists, because we need so many of them in us. So that's how we have really evolved. And we are a high tech driven organization right now. So compared to being in a tire sector, I think where we stand vis-a-vis technology, I feel very happy that we are very progressive.
So glad to hear that, Milind. In fact, this is a lot of exciting information that you have shared. I'm sure I personally need to, go back to this certain discussion and hear it again for the kind of stuff that you're doing at Ceat. So congratulations on that as well. So glad to see some organization doing so progressive work on technology and frontline workers front. So Tarun, coming to you, we did a lot of talk about technology and all, but we can gather at the end of this conversation is that while technology is the driver, the enabler, here what remains at the core of every organization practice is the people. So while we stand here to create a win-win for both the organization, the business, and the people, how do you see the tech platforms giving organizations a better opportunity to utilize the power of the frontline workforce and provide better opportunities to them?
I mean, completely admire Milind and really advanced in adoption, right? When you talk about chatbots and data science, I think on a manufacturing ecosystem, though you have an ecosystem of very different profiles of workers, right? I think appreciated. So I think fact is known that there is massive acceleration towards digital adoption. I mean, we are saying some 900 people by 2025 will have internet access, right? So I take it as a life cycle, right? If you remember, school used to have your financial planning life cycle. Think of the frontline workforce and how he goes through his life cycle, right? He has the same planning, the same aspirations as you and me. He wants to provide security to his family. He's the only earning member typically, so he wants to create a cover. But what he can afford, you and me probably, it's a very different ecosystem. Can we create custom benefits and solutions for them, right? How do we manage their dignity and well-being? I mean, if you look at the right of choice, where it starts, typically he used to get his job through touts and middlemen, right? Now we have marketplaces where there are verified jobs, where pedigree companies like Ceat and the ecosystem will go publish it. And we know that there is a clear verification, onboarding, check that happens completely digitally. at the convenience of holding a handset, and he can get onboarded into an organization while not getting fleeced by these middlemen and people that are all over the place. So it creates a security for the frontline worker. Like, how do I create a platform? Like Milind said, I want to give him affordable insurance if he's the only earning member. Can I give him early wage access? But typically, this profile is such that the 15th and 16th of the month, he runs out of his funds, right? But then he cannot afford the same interest rates and the same insurance that we can. Can we create pocket custom tools? Can it be embedded into a platform where the organization can provide him in 3 clicks and he can avail these services, right? How do we facilitate this vertically and horizontally? How do we adopt this? So what I see a massive acceleration on both sides. One is like, if organizations are willing to actually move into this ecosystem, they realize that as you aggregate and bring more and more services into one common platform end to end, you optimize and bring down your cost. And that examples Milind was giving, that how multiple layers within the organizations have moved. Average tenure is going down. How do you ensure that the organization is equipped for the future to optimize cost and bring them down? At the same time, imagine what you're facilitating. You're scaling the guy to increase his earning potential, right? You are actually giving him benefits, reducing attrition, because he says this is not an organization that just gives me salary. They take care of my well-being, they take care of my health, and it's all under one simple window. So imagine the cost of actually rehiring, and Milind would know that, is, and at 13% attrition, what if I can retain half of them and don't have to plug in that cost? I think both sides of the ecosystem are aggressively evolving, that how they can support each other. And I think it's a win-win as we move forward. And pleasant to hear that even erstwhile traditional marketplaces and manufacturers like Ceat are actually taking leaps and bounds beyond. I mean, when I say chatbot, when I say AI and science and data science, it is really appreciable. So I think we are moving to a good space where the workforce and the operational owner and the manager and the client are both balancing to create a better place to work.
Absolutely. And Tarun, just to add, you made a brilliant mention of the healthcare, medical insurance, and people who are earning between 18,000 to 20,000 rupees a month, who have come from not so good backgrounds as far as their families are concerned, from many other states. They have migrated, right? I think it's very important to be very sensitive towards these needs and demands as well. And one thing very interesting, I thought I'll share. So we have tied up with a partner. We are in the final formality stage where, let's say, if a workman is drawing X money, they run out of money in 15 days, 16 days, right? And then they have a challenge. And even if they want a couple of thousand more, they don't know where to go. So we have actually tied up with an organization which can give you advance salary from their pocket, because they are in a secured employment, and which is to be repaid over 3 installments interest-free. We have just close to now entering into agreement, because we realize that this is going to go a long way, because otherwise they borrow it from somebody on a 2%, 3% interest, and then that entire vicious cycle gets very dirty.
And imagine the stickiness you create with these employees because you're giving them the service in-house. Completely agree.
Absolutely.
I think this adoption, and I think beyond the fact that you give him security of a job, or we can create a cocoon of services. And I know, in fact, there are organizations there which are dwelling on better working, living conditions also. So within the ecosystem, the same cost can we create an environment which is healthy and hygiene to live in. So I think great leaps and bounds. I completely resonate with that.
And what we also realized during COVID especially is the disproportionate importance attached to one was well-being, obviously. But second is, unfortunately, if you fall sick, the kind of medical assistance and cover which you have. And we have had many accidental deaths. We have had some suffering because of COVID. We have made sure that those are anecdotes which should remember, people should remember, because that's what they will look at finally when they trust your brand. So term insurance, whether somebody has or not, medical insurance cover, irrespective of what's the hospitalization coverage, we have made sure that not even 1 rupee is spent from their pockets. I think whatever may be the expense, we have gone to every extent to cover up the entire expense. And we have taken care of families also.
Absolutely, because some organizations can be a little pinchy on this, not realizing the long-term benefit, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
this like that 5-year tenure can move to 7 and 8 because you're giving these benefits, and ultimately
Absolutely.
it's a win-win for both. I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like all good things come to an end, we have also come to an end of this very interesting discussion. But I hope that we'll be able to, live up to the expectations of the audience here and being able to drive the conversation in the right direction when it comes to the unsung heroes, the frontline workers. Thank you, Milind and Tarun. It has been a very insightful and interesting discussion, and it has been an absolute pleasure hosting you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tarun. Thanks.
Take care, Milind.
Take care. Bye.